That absolutely. So my name is Wesley Flynn. I'm going to be a senior computer engineering student at Virginia Tech in the fall, and I'm in Air Force ROTC. And so my plan after I graduate is to go into the Air Force doing cyber operations. So that's cybersecurity for the Air Force. I want to be one of the people that helps set up the networks and the computer infrastructure for bases out in the field. So I would get flown out somewhere, and when they're setting up a new base, I would be there to help set up the computers, make sure everything's connected. If they need satellite networks, help set that up, and then help keep it secure while the base is still being built. And there's a lot of things that need to happen before I get to that spot. But as of right now, that's my long-term trajectory. Um, and then I guess I got into computer engineering because I love playing with computers just for fun. I love programming and working with tech and just kind of learning about how everything works. And computer engineering has been great for that because it's kind of, especially when you're in your undergrad program, you get to learn like little pieces of everything. And it's not as much focus on one specific topic. It's just how do computers work overall? How do we make the little chips inside of there communicate? How do you design little chips at a very high level? And I love learning about that kind of stuff. So I can, if there's a specific concept or something that you guys have questions about, I'd love to talk about that. If you, I know Lynn mentioned that I use Chat GPT all the time, and I could give you some use cases where it might help you in your daily lives, because I think that's an incredible tool. And I mean, I think that's like one of the most powerful things that has ever come out. I mean, it's just, I love it to death. So yeah, whatever you guys are kind of feeling.
Um, I guess I'll give you a entry point since you brought up ChatGPT. I know a lot of our tech time folks, some on this call, some off, that are very skeptical of using it. They don't want to give out personal information or have their information training AI.
Okay.
Any advice you have, or should we allow, our things to be control the privacy settings, or is it okay, or things
That's
that we
a
would ask, or
that's
things.
a that's a good question. So by using the technology, it's kind of that's like one of the trade-offs is when you give your information, when you interact with it, they do collect that and they do use that to help create new models. Now, they don't associate that information with you directly, and part of their initiative to get this to give ChatGPT more access to everybody is you don't even have to log in with an account anymore to use it. You can just go to their website and play with it as is without giving them any kind of personal information that could identify what you're saying to you. But even if you do have an account and you sign in, you can still, they don't collect information that ties that directly to you. So I think if you're nervous about your personal like typing in personal things and then recording that, I think that's just kind of one of the caveats that comes with an incredible chatbot like that. But you can use your own discretion. So like I don't enter in personal details like my name or where I live or anything into the chatbot. But I mean, it probably could get a pretty good idea of the things that I like to do just based on my chat history. But in terms of what it does, I think the cons far or the pros far outweigh the cons. And I can give you guys some examples if you like of ways that somebody who isn't necessarily super into the tech world might use it. Do you want me to go with that, Lynn?
Sure.
So I'll share my screen. So the first thing is I have this article. So I have ChatGPT pulled up right here, and I am signed in, so you can kind of see all the different chats that I have. When you do sign in, you do get access to their newest and most powerful model, at least the free access to that one. And so I have this in one tab, and then I have this article I just found on the Associated Press about a new South African president that was sworn in. And so I'm reading this article, and it says that he was reelected with the help of a coalition of parties. And I don't really know what a coalition of parties is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a bunch of this text. I'm going to copy it. You can right click and copy. Can you see this? Is this too small?
Do
I
you
can
guys
see
want
it.
him to zoom in?
I can do that.
That's good.
That's good.
Awesome. So I copied this text, and then I can go to ChatGPT and I say, what does coalition mean in this context? And then I forgot the C. And then I can paste in the paragraphs that I copied and click enter. And you can see that in this context, coalition refers to an alliance between different political parties to achieve a common goal. And so that's super helpful. Now I know what that means specifically in the context of that article. What these models do is they feed them an enormous amount of text, and they figure out what different words mean relative to the words around them. So it's really good at picking up on the nuances of language and the nuances of paragraphs and different things. And it makes it really good for, if you most imagine it like a dictionary, but a dictionary for the specific context of the word that you give it, which I think is it's super incredible. Now, one of the newer features that's really cool is you can also attach files. So recently I was looking at investing in different stocks, right? And I heard Lowe's was a good long-term company to invest in. So I went to Lowe's website and I downloaded one of their financial statements right here. So this is their 2024 first quarter financial statements. And so I've downloaded that onto my computer. And so I've saved it right here. And if I'm going too fast or any of this is confusing, let me know. And then what I can do is I can click the little paper clip and click upload from computer. And then I hit the Q1 2024 earnings release. And so now I've inserted that file into the chat that I'm interacting with ChatGPT, and I can ask it questions about that file. So I can say, what does this tell you about Lowe's Lowe's performance as a company? What should I look for in this document that would tell me if I should invest in Lowe's? And it's always good to spell things correctly. And so I enter that in, and it'll take a second because it's processing this whole PDF. So then it gives me specific examples from that document that I should look at when considering whether I should invest in this company. So it says they reported a net earnings of 1.8 billion and I diluted earnings per share of $3.06 for Q1 2024. And it'll go on to list a whole bunch of different things. And they train these models to be really good at never giving you like a specific answer if you should do something or not, unless it's like you're giving it some really crazy prompts. But one of the other cool things is when you continue this chat, it knows that it said all of this. So if I'm really confused on like what are diluted earnings per share, I can copy that. And so it's going through, and then it gives me a full set of investment considerations, things that I should look at to know if this is a worthy investment. Then I can say, what do you mean by diluted earnings per share?
Wesley, I have a slightly different question, but somewhat related to this.
Go ahead.
Uh, uh, you're a college senior. I just wonder how the college faculties are looking at AI in general and the basically the assignments that they give to students and how they're going to manage what is original research by a particular student versus using chat GPT or AI and coming up with research or a paper or information like that. Are they struggling with that in the college environment, or is it pretty straightforward? Or
No, they are struggling with that a lot. And even just within computer engineering, I've gotten professors with very differing views. I have some professors who are like, do not touch this. This is the devil. That, like, I don't know why you would ever, like, using this is just pure plagiarism. And then I have other professors that are like, you can try using it. It's not going to give you anything valuable for this class. And they almost have like a sense of arrogance that it can't do the, what's required for the class, which sometimes it does really kind of mess things up. And a lot of them are more informed, and then some of them are like, some of them say are just say go for it. Like, you can use it all you want, and I'll try to make my assignments so that it's really difficult for something like ChatGPT to do that for you. And I think that is possible. You can make them very personal to the student. Like, an example would be if you're creating like a programming project, you have you make it so that the student has to like write a thesis about a problem that they want to accomplish with a programming project. You basically make them so that they have to explain every single step that they took to create that project. And what that does is, even if they are using something like ChatGPT to do some of it for them, they have to understand exactly what it did and why it made those decisions, which that can be really important for learning as well. So I think there's a little bit of confusion. And then I've also seen at Harvard, they've actually made their own AI bot that's specifically trained on the syllabus of their computer science classes. And so if students have questions about the coursework, they can actually, instead of going to a TA and waiting in some kind of really long line to get help, they can ask the chat bot for assistance, and the chat bot is trained to not give direct answers, but help the student along the way. So yeah, it's kind of a huge point of contention in the education world right now, because it is an incredibly powerful educational tool, but can also do a lot of work for you.
well said. Thank you. Yeah.
Wes, I have a couple of questions. In your example here, you downloaded the file. Was that because you might want to refer back to it later? Because in your first example, you just cut and paste.
Uh-huh.
Could you have cut and pasted this and gotten to this same point?
That's a great question. I could have. However, this is a 7-page document, and I want ChatGPT to be able to reference everything in this document for the sake of figuring out if this is a company that I should invest in. So, and when I went to their website, they gave me a PDF document to download rather than just a single web page. So if I wanted a lot more context for the coalition of parties, say, who are the different parties, and why is it so important that they work together and they created this alliance? Maybe I would want to download this, and I could do that. It's different in different browsers, but I could like save this page as, this will save it as an HTML page, but that's not really important. And then I could also link this entire web page in there. But for the purpose of the demonstration and just for figuring out what this word means, I only needed to really copy these 2 paragraphs. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I use Copilot, Windows Copilot.
Okay.
Is that better, worse than this? Do you have any thoughts about it?
Absolutely. It's actually pretty much the exact same thing. Microsoft and OpenAI. So OpenAI is the company that makes ChatGPT. they're actually getting most of their funding from Microsoft. Microsoft is one of their largest investors, and GitHub or this Copilot, I think I have it down here too, is essentially just accessing ChatGPT through a back channel. So part of the deal is since Microsoft invests so much in OpenAI, Microsoft gets priority access to their models. And so when you use this Copilot, it's really just another interface for using this ChatGPT.
Okay. I have not tried to download a file or keep a file. Can I do that using Copilot?
So
I
I
haven't
don't,
tried that.
let's see, I haven't tried doing that either, but it looks like, so this is cool. You can add a screenshot. So if I click the add a screenshot button, then I can just select text. Let's say if I select what's going on down here, press the check mark. It looks like that'll upload that picture directly to the prompt. And then I could ask it like, what are the different icons on my toolbar? And then it should be able to tell me what's going on. So that's pretty similar, and that might actually be a lot easier than trying to do the whole attach a file if you're just using screenshot.
Mhm.
And then it tells me all the different things that are going on the toolbar. So that might be a really easy way to also like figure out if weird things are going on with your computer, just taking a screenshot with them and giving it to the Copilot and asking what's going on.
Okay. Okay. I
So,
had another question if I could ask, because I might have a repairman coming in a little bit.
okay,
We'll see. When I open Windows Security,
okay.
it says that I've not set up in OneDrive a virus and theft protection, and I've purposely not done that. I've got the other Windows Security, but I don't have that set up. And the reason is I wasn't sure if I wanted my files in the cloud. Um, can you give me any recommendations or advantages and disadvantages of me setting up my files in OneDrive to get that theft protection?
Absolutely. So the main disadvantage is that Microsoft is really, really aggressive when it comes to its marketing and getting you to pay for things. So even if you sign up for like the free version of OneDrive, which gives you just a couple gigabytes, they're going to be constantly going after like telling you to upgrade, giving you options to upgrade to your more storage and more space. Um, that really drives me insane. I hate that a lot. And so I would say that's the biggest downside to using it.
Mhm.
The best upside is that your files they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to be very safe. Microsoft is really good at keeping it so that unless you give somebody else access to your account, nobody else is going to be able to access them. If you're apprehensive about putting your files on the cloud, one thing that I even do is I just have backups, like physical backups, like on USB sticks or on hard drives, or I have several different computers, and the files that are really important I have saved on each of those computers, so that
Okay.
I know that if one of them dies, then I have two other copies elsewhere.
Right. And I've done that too. That's why I haven't used OneDrive for that and the potential cost. I just wasn't sure if I was losing out. And I think I'll just keep doing what I'm based on your comments. I'm just going to leave it the way it is.
That'll probably be the easiest for you. OneDrive is really great for collaboration, but then when it's a single person using it and you're happy just making those physical backups, then it's probably going to save you a whole lot of headaches.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
So Wesley, in the private sector, there are a lot of good security companies like Palo Alto, Fortinet, and so on. And I guess pretty much whatever size company you are, you're going to need companies like this to protect your information and so on. Do you and or some of your colleagues in the engineering department look forward to eventually getting either founding small companies or joining one of these other companies?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to. I mean, in the Air Force, I'll probably be kind of limited in terms of what I can do with that. But once I get out, I think the rate at which like these new startups are popping up and startups are becoming successful, and also that like the bigger companies are just doing more and more incredible things, it makes me super, super excited to be part of that field. And I keep hearing from everybody that's in it that it just keeps growing. Like it's not going to stop anytime soon. So yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Is he going above some of your heads, or you able to stick with it for the most part? Wes, one question that I've heard several times from different people is trying to determine how, if the information they're getting in some of these chat GDB AI sites is accurate information, because there have been articles and things about how there's been false information or things that it generates that's not quite in line with fact.
That's a good question. So that is one of the things that you just kind of have to know about these models, is that they don't always generate the right information. The way they work, like behind the scenes, is all they're actually doing is when you give it a prompt like this, they're just predicting what the most likely next word is going to be. And so when I give it this prompt, it says, okay, I think the most likely next word is going to be two. And then it calculates everything again, says, okay, the most likely next word is going to be access. And then the most likely next word is going to be Lowe's. It's not referencing like a big database of facts. It's just this model this model with all of these that just predicts these next words. So it's really tough to get it to predict, to give you perfectly accurate information. Now, what OpenAI and a lot of the other companies are doing is they're making sure that everything that they train the models on is accurate, but you're basically just assuming that whoever creates the model is feeding it really good information. So whenever I do anything where I need to, it's critical that that information is accurate, I just double check it. So like right on here where they reported net earnings of 1.8 billion. So let me go back to the sheet, and if I can find their net earnings, I don't really know how to navigate these. So
Net
net
earnings is
earnings,
on there. Yeah.
here we go. 1.8 billion right here. So this is in millions of dollars. Oh, I lost it.
Yeah.
But we can see, so 1.8 billion is correct. So I know that it did a good job on that one. So if there's anything that it's critical that I know that that's accurate, I just double check it with a Google search and looking at what other people or what other reputable sources on the internet say. There are also other models that you can play with if you wanted to go really down the deep end. The other, like probably the best other one that I like to use is called Claude. That's CLAUDE. And so the link is just claude.ai. And it kind of has a prettier interface too. And you can attach a lot more files with this model, and there aren't quite as many of the limitations as you sometimes get with ChatGPT. It just can be a little bit more unpredictable. So if it loads, it's basically just the same thing, but you can attach more files.
What do you mean when you said unpredictable?
That like sometimes the information that comes out of it isn't always correct, or like one thing, I don't know that one thing that used to be a huge problem with models is math. Like they had a really, really hard time doing math. And because they weren't trained to do math operations, they were trained to understand language. So there was really no difference between 3 + 4 is 9 versus 3 + 4 was 7. They're just numbers. And it didn't really care. So with this one, and the problem is they update so frequently that all of a sudden this one becomes the best at math and this is the best at interpreting language, and then they flip flop because the new update came out. But this one used to be the best at math, but then would give me some kind of wacky text output that didn't really make sense. But when I asked it to do, explain like different operations in calculus to me, it really knew what it was doing, where ChatGPT would kind of give me false information. But in the past couple months, they've all gotten like amazing at that. So that's not something you have to worry about as much. Any other questions?
Wesley, if you have an Apple cell phone, did you review the new AI improvements that the company announced the last week or 10 days or so?
I did see those. Unfortunately, my cell phone will not qualify for all of that AI stuff. I'm really excited for when they start bringing these types of models into Siri, because I use Siri all the time just to set alarms and text messages from across the room when I don't want to have my cell phone in my hand. I can just yell at my phone and have it do it for me. It's kind of a scary thought though, that they're still going to have your information, everything that you talk to it. That's definitely scary. But my approach with all of that is I try to create parts of my life where I know that there's just not going to be technology. So like when I go to bed, or if I like I try not to keep my cell phone in my room. I try not to keep computers in my room. There are times when I'm using it, and there's times when I'm not using it and I don't want anything to do with it. And so I think as these companies get more aggressive with the different ways that you can use the tech, it's more on us to know where do we use it in our lives and where do we specifically say, no, I'm not using it right now. It's time for me just to have dinner with my girlfriend or whatever, like not worry about it. Or my family. My mom just threw that in there. That's important too.
You raised something that reminded me of a question. Could be for you or Lynn. I read recently something about how you have to be careful with iPhones about overcharging, that you don't want to charge it overnight while you're sleeping. Is that correct, or can you talk about that?
I think realistic. Do you want me to talk about that, Lynn?
Go for it if you've got a quick answer.
Realistically, that's probably not something you need to worry about. You'll probably replace your phone well before the battery is completely kaput. The phones in them, they have smart charging circuits that know when the battery's fully charged, and they'll keep it from overcharging. The lithium batteries that are in your phones are really sensitive to if they're overcharged, they explode. If they're undercharged, they explode. And so all of the electronics that charge your battery, that's all within the phone. So it almost doesn't even matter what brick you use, as long as it's the right adapters. Your phone will limit the amount of current that can charge the battery. It'll limit the amount of time that it charges the battery. And you'll see sometimes when you unplug your phone, it won't be at 100% in the morning. It'll be at like 98 or 99. And that's because once it gets to a certain threshold, the charging circuits actually turn off, because they know that your battery's sufficiently enough charged. We can let it dip down a couple microvolts before we turn the power back on. So if you want to keep your battery going for like 20 years, maybe only charge it, for a couple hours once every couple days. But realistically, I don't think that's something you need to worry about.
Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Wes, for those that didn't stay up to date with the new AI that Apple announced last week, do you have a short summary of what things that were percolated from that conference, or?
Sure. So I think the main ideas were that in the iPhone 15 Pros and newer models, which the iPhone 15 I believe is their newest model, but the idea is they're putting special chips in the iPhones that make them really good at running these types of large language models on the device. So these chatbots can run on the device rather than in the internet. one of Apple's like top priorities is keeping data secured. So if you can run something like this on the device, that means that you don't have to send any of your information outside of right here, which is great. They've also partnered with OpenAI specifically to help to use OpenAI's models and help train their own. And I think the biggest things that people will see is Siri being a lot better at doing complicated tasks. So where like right now, if I tell Siri to set an alarm for 6:30, it just adds a new alarm. So every time I tell Siri to do that, I get like another alarm. So after a while, I have to delete all my alarms because I have 50 different alarms. Where now it'll be more intelligent. It'll recognize that I already have an alarm set. It'll just turn that one on. Or if I tell it to send an email to somebody and CC somebody else, it would understand what all of the different steps are involved with that and can do that all through your voice. Where the current Siri can only do like really simple things like turning on and off your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or different settings, or sending like single text messages to people. I think that those were the most notable things. It'll also, I mean, part of what's really freaky is it'll start to create more of a profile about you that so it can tailor its responses to you. Again, though it's using your data, so that's kind of freaky. But I think those were the main points that I saw. I didn't watch the whole tech release. I don't know, David, was there any other things that you saw that I missed?
My memory's not great enough to recall that, but
Okay.
I'm very interested as an investor as well as the owner of an iPhone
Of course.
and Microsoft too. So Copilot, their new development and all that stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's kind of funny. All the different companies have kind of taken a different stance on the way that they're approaching this. Like Apple's always been usually the last to get on board with new and fancy technologies, but then when they release something, they do it perfectly. And there's no mishaps. Where Microsoft is usually will try really aggressively to get something out there and it might be half polished and they were going to release some new AI feature and people freaked out about it because they didn't like the way it was implemented and so they had to recall it and it was just like this huge mess. So I trust Apple probably more than any other company to handle this appropriately.
I guess, tell me if I'm right or wrong, Wesley, but I guess if I go to one of the Apple retail stores, I can sign up for classes on any of their new improvements or whatever.
Oh,
I don't know whether, I mean, maybe it's so segmented and it's purchase related, but I guess that's something I should think of.
I know that Apple offers different classes and things. Sometimes you can just show up and go to them. Sometimes you have to register. And they have a lot of stuff online too that you can do.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Lynn. Yeah.
oh, I had no idea about that. That's really cool.
So, Wes, I know there have been a lot of people that have reached out to me about images generated by AI and trying
Mhm.
to know if it's actually a real photo or if it's fake. And I've given suggestions like check the numbers of hands and things. Are there
Uh-huh.
places on ChatGPT or other internet sites where you can check those kind of things or?
I know there's a pretty good one for text. Like if you go to, I think it's GPT 0, if you look that up, that is really good. If you copy and paste text into there, I've actually been really surprised with how well it can tell you if it's fake or if it's generated by AI or not. But with images, I have no idea. Yeah, it used to be that they were really bad at, predicting where fingers would be and doing hands and everything. Um, so it looks like you can just, let's see, if we could probably just, we get this guy. Come on. But yeah, I don't know, that freaks me out too. I've no idea how to, because a lot of the newer models are really good at that. One thing though that's kind of nice is that training these models is incredibly, incredibly expensive. I think they said like each model of ChatGPT costs them like hundreds of millions of dollars just in energy bills because of the amount of computers it takes to build something like this. So there are some scary models that like people can build on their home computers, but it's not going to be quite as you don't so, nobody in their basement is going to create something that's super devastating. Most likely, we'll see, but um that's something we don't have to worry about probably as much.
Is there talk about in your classes or things about, since you brought it up, the energy and climate change and stuff, concerns about um all this AI and advancement is going to add to our climate change problems? Not
They
so much.
haven't they haven't talked about it in any of my classes. Um, I have heard like lots of news articles and things of people talking about that. Uh, um, yeah, I think that's it's very true. I mean, they consume an enormous amount of power, and I think some people are banking on the fact that maybe these will be what part of what helps us figure out alternative energy solutions and come to more of the solutions. But yeah, I think as of right now, it's just kind of consuming enormous amounts of energy and the companies are just kind of turning a blind eye. I'm not really sure. Maybe they're doing a whole lot of stuff on the back end that we don't see, but who knows? I don't really know too much more than that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
There are a couple of utility stocks that have become growth companies this year, like Nextera Energy and a couple others that are doing very well because of all this energy consumption that is predicted for AI and so on.
Oh,
So
oh, that's cool.
there's some interesting ripple effects or unintended consequences going on from some of these technology developments.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's just shaking up a lot of things.
Cool. So if you hit get started to this website, is that how it determines that, or did it already scan it? And
Yes, so it already scanned it and it said 98% probability that it was AI generated, which it is correct.
oh yeah, you're right, it's over there. I can't read it.
So the colors are a little bit wacky. It's kind of hard to see. One other thing that I use it for a lot is like let's see, did I pull anything up? No, but if I write like an essay or something, I'll paste my essay into ChatGPT and then I'll tell it to give me a really harsh critique. And it'll go through and it's really good at saying like you stated this fact or you made this statement, but you didn't back it up with any information. Or, this sentence is worded in a really funky way. Like maybe you should consider changing that. I mean, that's kind of like mind blown me because when I don't have my mom to help me proofread my essays, it's really helpful for finding things that I would have totally missed. So that's another cool use case that's not
Huh.
just pure tech related.
That's awesome.
Wesley, as knowledgeable as you are and as excited as you are about it, I'm not. And
Okay.
but there's no way that I can prevent being involved. Isn't that right? When I pull something up, I don't know if it's AI generated or I did on my phone just the other day. I looked at something and it said right on it, this has not been AI. I don't remember what they said, affected or something like that on it. And so is that the future, that people that don't want to have it will have to look for something that says we're not using it?
Yeah, probably. I think it's going to be really, really hard to escape all of that.
Yeah.
And then again, like one of the best ways to do that is you just shut your computer lid. Like,
Go back to writing.
yeah, I mean, like I still take my notes with pens and paper because I've tried lots of different fancy gizmos and AI apps on my computer, and like it can't do everything. Like, there's no way that it's going to replace the little connections that I make by drawing diagrams and things like that. So
Yeah, well, and you knew it, and then when you were pulling all that up and, okay, this is gonna tell me this, and then you said, well, you better go check if they're right. Well, why didn't I just go there in the first place instead of try to do this other use? I don't know. And I'm not easily convinced that they don't get your personal information anyway.
okay.
I
And I don't blame you. It would be hard to be suspicious of that, especially when it's like, here's this whole fancy thing. It's completely free. It's completely free. Please use it. It does kind of seem like there might be something devious going on.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that the conclusion that I've come to when it comes to AI or even social media or anything technology related, as we're given lots and lots of options with things to do and things to watch and content to engage in. And it becomes just more and more of our responsibility. What do we choose to engage in and what do we not choose not to? Like with social media, I'm very, very conservative. I have the minimal amounts of social media accounts that I can possibly get by with. I have as many of the algorithms shut off as I can. All the recommended feeds, I just have those turned off. Because I know that that's something that I don't need and I don't want kind of going into my brain. And so that's just a choice that I've had to make rather than letting the companies make that choice for me. So I think we just kind of have to adopt a mindset of we need to be making a lot of those choices for ourselves.
Right. Well said. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Challenge is they're auto turned on, so remembering to go in and
Yes, yeah.
Exactly.
Or even Suri, you're not saying anything to her, but she's sitting there listening to the whole conversation in the room.
Right.
Yeah. In my Air Force ROTC detachment, I was just making some comment about the series and the Alexa things and all of that. And Lieutenant Colonel Smith, one of the high-ranking officers that works for us, she said something to me. She's like, "Wait till you get your security clearance. You're not going to want to have any of those devices near you." It's like, oh no, what does that mean? Like, so
come back and report if you're allowed to.
the report might be, get rid of them, get rid of them, get rid of them.
Yeah.
But we'll see. So yeah, I think when I have my future house, I'm gonna have dedicated rooms where there's just nothing. Like I don't know, that's just the way it'll be.
Right.
On a different line of questioning, Wes, I see you're using Firefox. Do you have a favorite browser to use or favorite search engine? Or are you like me that switches between different ones for different things?
I like Firefox. One of the main reasons is because it's not owned by Google. But Mozilla is pretty well known for their security practices, and they're pretty involved in that department. And I really like the password manager that's they use, and I like how it syncs seamlessly across my devices. It's not as aggressive as Google Chrome is, or Edge is. It doesn't tell me. The one thing that does it, like, sometimes it comes up with these pocket suggestions down here, and that really kind of rubs me the wrong way because I keep having to turn them off. But aside from that, it doesn't try to get me to download anything else. It doesn't try to get me to download more things from Microsoft or from Google. And I guess it also works really well across lots of different platforms because I have computers running lots of different operating systems, and it syncs really seamlessly with all of them. So it's just worked really well for me. But I also used Google Chrome for a while, and I thought it worked well. Microsoft Edge is fine. It's just it can be really aggressive sometimes in terms of getting you to use Microsoft things. And then for web browsers, I use DuckDuckGo. Not as much because I'm concerned about privacy, and more just because I like how it doesn't. I don't like seeing the tailored ads or the ads in general, and DuckDuckGo is good for that. I will switch to Google if I'm looking for something that's like, what does the general internet think about this? I'll search that up on Google rather than DuckDuckGo. But as my daily driver, it works really nicely.
Wes, you mentioned Firefox password manager. Is that a free password manager, or do you pay for it, or?
No, it's free. I mean, it's just stored in my browser. So I just go to passwords and then they all pop up here. So and it auto saves them, and I've gotten very comfortable with knowing how to change them, how to deleting them. One thing that I'm going to do relatively soon is just create like a file backup, like a physical file on a thumb drive or something somewhere that's encrypted, so that if my Firefox goes down, I know where that is. I also like the auto passwords that it generates. So like I've stopped using like strings like silly frog 4 or whatever as my passwords, and just random strings of characters that don't make any sense. Um, if you go like to the science of brute forcing passwords, they're they're a lot more difficult to crack than like a string. I've always heard like don't use common phrases or anything, and then like I learned some password cracking tools, and I was able to crack several of my own passwords, and it kind of freaked me out. So I switched to all just random strings of characters, and so far it's worked pretty well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other like tech questions or existential questions or?
Sure, you have our heads exploding of different things.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's a super exciting world to be in, um, but also it's also very overwhelming. I get overwhelmed all the time by it, and I'm working on a couple of different like personal like coding projects and stuff, and it's like every single time I just like, man, I don't know how I'm so behind. Like it's crazy how complicated it gets and how quickly it's just like, um, and yeah, I mean, it's cool if you want like a little bit of faith in where the world's going. There's what I've loved the most about ChatGPT is it's helped me learn so much. And there's so many tools on the internet, and so many just repositories of free code and free books and things where I don't know, I feel like the only thing that's holding me back for learning everything is me. Like I have access to all of this stuff for free. And if I have questions about something very personal, like more like a personal question about like I don't understand why they use this word here, like what does this mean in this context? I can use ChatGPT, and it's almost like a personal tutor. And so I think yes, a lot of people will probably, I have friends that are like, I don't know how so and so graduated, they just ChatGPT their way through their entire degree. And that's scary, but then again, they're probably not going to end up being very productive members of the workforce. But then and I hope like to think of myself maybe more in this category where people who use this to learn a whole lot and to kind of advance, their own careers and their own understandings, and as a learning tool that, and hopefully that'll be what ends up, powering us through all of this chaos.
Don't use it as your sole source of information or knowledge, right?
Exactly.
It was
Wes,
really great having you on the call.
Good. It was a pleasure being here. Glad I could answer some of your questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Of course.
yes, and Wes, do you have any other resources or books or articles or things you could recommend if we want to do more deep dives on security or AI or things like that?
That's a good question.
You can think about it and let us know, and we could send an email out for folks too.
Yeah, I guess I get most of my news. I mean, there's like one YouTube channel that I'm subscribed to that like will post lots of updates. I'm also just subscribed to like OpenAI's channels on whether it's I mean YouTube is the big one that I follow, but also like email chains. I like to, kind of have very intentional email newsletters that I get. And then I mean, more recently, like Yahoo Finance is kind of really helpful because, this whole thing is driven by money. So the articles on there will tell you what they're doing. But yeah, I can maybe come up with some more specific resources and I can send those to you, Lynn.
Any other questions or things? I know we didn't talk personal problems. Does anybody have any specific tech questions that you want to try to resolve?
Well, I'm looking for Connie. You said she'd be here today. Maybe not quite yet.
Yeah, she might not have had the energy after.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Awesome.
Cool. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, Lynn.